Good afternoon. Welcome to Warriors Corner. We are proud to present the Army Rapid Capabilities and Critical Technologies Office with speakers Lieutenant General L. Neil Thurgood, Director of Hypersonics, Directed Energy, Space, and Rapid Acquisition, Miss Marcia Holmes, Deputy Director, Hypersonics, Directed Energy, Space, and Rapid Acquisition, and Mr. Stan Darbrough, Deputy Director, Army RICTO.
We are in an era of increased strategic competition. The current strategic landscape is witnessing rapid change and the potential for increased threat to the peace and stability of various regions and indeed for the world. States and non-state actors are rapidly transforming technologically, and we are bearing witness to a fundamental change in the character of war. Readiness, modernization, and combat power are key to deter war and maintain the peace.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope we're all doing good. Hope you're having a great AUSA symposium and summit this year. It's super great to be together. We haven't been able to do this for a couple of years, so it's super great to see everybody, see everybody's faces and be together. Let me introduce Ms. Holmes, who is our deputy in our Redstone area, and Mr. Darbrough, who's our deputy in the National Capital Region. We're super excited about the mission we've been given by the Army to do some pretty unique things. As General Milley said, it's a fundamental shift, and we have to behave differently as we move forward if we want to keep pace in the process which we live in this great democracy. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today and about the things that we're doing, we've been asked to do by the Secretary of the Army as we go forward. And I just want to start with, we stood this organization up about 26 months ago in 2019. If you go to the next slide, and we have engaged with the industry, traditional defense industries, non-traditionals, small companies, academic institutions, foreign partners and nations. And I just want to start with saying thank you. Thank you for your interest, and you're willing to trust us. You're willing to engage with us in a new and different way. I know that some of you were uncomfortable with our new engagement strategy with you and how transparent we are, but we can actually do this. We can do hard things, wicked hard things really fast and be successful. And so I just wanted to start with saying thank you to our industry partners, to our government partners, and to our other Army and joint agencies that we deal with on a daily basis. Being transparent is about communicating and being clear with what we need to do together. It's no longer us and them. It's us together to be successful, and we have to change how we engage and behave as we do that, and I'll talk a little bit about that to begin with. So thank you for what you've done. Thanks for your trust and confidence, and thanks for engaging with us. We have a bright future ahead of us to make sure we continue on that path and continue to be transparent in how we execute our mission sets. Go to the next slide. There are times in our history, and this is one of those times, a transition time, a tipping point, where we need to do things a little bit differently, where we need to accelerate how we do things. And the Army stood up the Army Futures Command to be part of that in partnership with ASALT so that we could actually behave differently. And I think you know that the S&T communities have been moved under the Army Futures Command, right? So you got the big warfighting, future warfighting thinkers aligned with the S&T thinkers who should be designing the materials about that future warfight. And somewhere in the middle, this thing called the Valley of Death happens. And we have great S&T work, but it never seems to transition out of the S&T world into a program of record world. And really that's the nexus of what this organization is designed to do. And I'll walk you through this slide a little bit so that it makes a little more sense to you. On the far left of that is some good idea, right? It might come from an academic institution. It might come from a government lab. It might come from industry's IR&D project. It might come from anywhere. We actually don't care where it comes from. We want the good idea. And at some point, at decision point 1, the Army decides they're going to invest S&T dollars into that outcome. And normally that's what we call 6.1 and 6.2 dollars, right? Basic research. It's a good idea. We don't know if it's going to work. We might try 2 or 3 approaches on the same idea because we don't know what approach is going to work. And so our great S&T community starts that effort. And what the S&T community does there in the green is invention and demonstrations. And I use those words intentionally because what they don't do is prototyping. And prototyping is what we do in the RCCTO, and I'll define that for you in just a second. But so they do a great job of coming up with an idea and making it real. And they normally do that at a subscale level or a component level. And they make the invention work, and then they demonstrate the invention works and the technology works. And they do that under the Army Futures Command because that's where they belong. So the great thinkers of the future warfare match with the great thinkers of the inventions that need to happen to make the future warfare become real. And then we get to decision point 2. And that's when we want to prototype something. Prototyping, in the way we use the word, is defined simply. It's a unit of action. A piece of combat equipment going to a combat unit. Not going to a lab somewhere, not going to a test somewhere, not going to see if it's usable somewhere. It's going to a combat unit. And we're going to actually give it to a unit and let them use it and practice with it before we ever decide to let it become a program of record. Before we ever spend 3 years in the JSIDS process and 4 years in the acquisition process and then realize that the thing we want no longer is what we thought we wanted it to be. So we have to behave differently, and this organization was designed to do that. And so right here in the purple is where we come into play. And so we take our direction, our mission specifically from the Secretary of the Army as a direct reporting unit to the Secretary of the Army. And as I said to the Secretary of the Army in my first in-brief with her, I said, we're the wicked hard problem people. That's what you do. You give us the wicked hard problems, and we'll try to figure out a way that can do it. And so we begin with industry, and we do prototype. We make a battery, a company, a platoon-sized element only. And when we do that, we behave differently. We mostly work with other transaction authorities under BAA authorities, and we go directly to the companies that actually can do this work. We normally do that through a really short competitive process through white papers. And then we do a quick down select, and we've been given authority to make those decisions. So once the Secretary says to do something, then that's all the guidance I need. And I'll give you an example of that in just a second. And so then we press really hard, and we actually require industry to be in our meetings with us and our staff calls. We actually require industry to be in our budget meetings with us. It's a totally different way of doing business. It's a totally transparent way of doing business. And industry has responded very well. And in some cases, we have programs that there are 4 or 5 industry partners. And we have one integrated master schedule, one set of EVMS against 4 or 5 industry partners. Now, at first, I got to tell you, they were very uncomfortable with that. And we said, look, if you're going to play the game differently, we got to behave differently. And so they've been very successful. And then the AFC, the Army Futures Command, writes an abbreviated CDD, right? So everybody knows the CDD traditionally has thresholds and objectives. Well, what we've learned over time is that when you're trying to do something really quick and prototype it, you may not know exactly what you want. You may not know if it can actually be produced or built. And so we write an abbreviated CD, and it defines the characteristics of the thing that we want, the things we want it to behave like, we want it to do, the capabilities that we desire. And then we go build a unit of action. And when we build this unit of action, we not only build it, train the unit, and do all the traditional program things, but we also require industry to give us a level 3 TDP, technical data package, build to print. And sometimes the industry is uncomfortable with that. It's not the 1950s anymore. We have to behave differently. So we require a technical data package, because if the Army wants a lot of these things, I'm not the team. Our team is not going to be the team that builds a lot. That's not our job. Our job is to build prototypes, to give it to a combat unit and see if it can work. And then if we want to build a bunch, then we transition to decision point 3 on this slide, and the Army writes a CDD. Here's the difference than our history. Traditionally, we would write a CDD on a program of record, and we have no idea if we could actually build that threshold requirement. And so you see lots of history where we have a CDD, we have a threshold, and it turns out 5 years later we can actually meet that threshold. It can't be done. We changed that whole paradigm. We have a level 3 TDP. We know we can build the threshold. And then we make the objectives of the CDD the things we want to improve the weapon system on. And so it's a very different kind of approach to move forward, different than we've had in the past. And so right here, this is no longer me. This is now a program of record. It's a program executive office that will transition. Our team does prototyping. Program of record people build lots of a thing. And so if the Army decides, number 1, they have 3 choices at decision point 3. Number 1, we like it, we want a lot of them, and I transition that to a program of record. Our team is not designed to do that. Number 2, we tried it, we don't like it, kill it right now. Never let it become a program of record, never spend any more penny on it. Don't spend another penny on it. And then number 3, we like it, but it's not quite ready yet. Let's put it back in the S&T world to finish the invention. The invention is not quite what we thought it was going to be. We like it, but we're not quite sure we're going to move forward with it. And so this model actually works very well, and I'll give you some examples of that. And so we're all about innovation. We're about finding new technologies, and we have teams that are designed just to do that outcome. Go ahead to the next slide. So we do this in a couple areas. We have what we call strategic outcomes here under the green, things that are at national strategic level. So hypersonic, offensive hypersonic weapons, directed energy weapons, mid-range capability weapons. And that's all under Ms. Holmes. She'll talk about that. And then we have Mr. Darborough, who's got all these other things. We call it critical outcomes. And these are smaller things that are unique to the Army particularly. And there's some really innovative ideas that Mr. Darborough is working with his team. And then on the far left, I think you heard General Gainey earlier today. The Army has been designated the executive agency for Counter Small U.S. He leads that. Great leader and a great American. And we are his material arm. So we're responsible across the Department of Defense for the material solutions now for Counter Small UAS. And so for the first time, the department is trying to approach counter UAS in a holistic manner, which is really interesting work. And so that's our mission statement. All that really says is build a few of a thing and see if it works. See if it works before we spend a bunch of time and money. In business, you would say fail fast, fail early. That's what we try to do. Either let's get it and make it work, or let's decide that it's not worth the time and money and change the behavior of how we do things in the department. And so it's a super exciting mission that we have every day. Go to the next slide. So I'll give you an example, and then I'll transition this to Ms. Holmes. So last Thursday was a great day for our nation, and we fielded in 26 months from a blank piece of paper, 26 months, all the ground support equipment for our first offensive hypersonic unit at Joint Base Lewis McChord. That is wicked fast. We have not done that kind of work since the 1950s, since the space race. And when you got a coordinated enterprise who understands the vision and the clarity, and you're transparent, you can actually do things that are wicked hard very well and build them correctly, safely for our soldiers to use and get equipment on the battle space much faster. And so when I actually got this mission from the Secretary of the Army, it was on the 14th of February, 2019. Happy Valentine's Day. the Secretary said, Neil, I want you to build an offensive hypersonic weapon, and I want you to have it all completely done by FY23. What are your questions? That's pretty clear. I don't need any more guidance than that. And so we put a team together and began this effort. We're organized very differently than a traditional government organization. My immediate staff is only 78 people. That's it. We bring organizations together. We call that aggregating teams. And when we do our mission, we disaggregate teams. Right? Very much like not a government organization. That's intentionally. So we behave differently. We're designed differently. We're organized differently for this outcome. And so all this ground support equipment you see here on the left was delivered to our unit at JBLM. And on Monday, they're starting their new equipment training. And I'll tell you, the new equipment training is phenomenal. It's probably better than most current training base equipment in the Army. It is state-of-the-art. The young soldiers love it. It's all virtual. I told my team, you are not allowed to use any PowerPoint slides in this training. We're beyond that, right? Let's use all the tools that we have in our toolbox. And so we have a series of flight tests, and these units will begin to shoot our flight tests. We don't have time to do a bunch of flight tests and then give it to the unit. The unit has to be part of the flight test program. So we train them how to shoot this and use this weapon system as we build the weapon system. And I'll just highlight one thing and then turn it over to Ms. Holmes, is part of behaving different is we have transition teams. They're embedded in our office on day one. The transition team is from the gaining PEO. So if the decision is to go forward, that team is already building the POM, the money documents. They're building the strategy to continue, right? One of the reasons we have the Valley of Death is we finish something in S&T and then it's automatically a 2-year break before a PEO gets it. You can't have that, right? Industry won't wait for that. Those teams aren't going to hang around doing nothing for 2 years. And so this model actually is a pretty extensive model. We spent a lot of time figuring out how to do it a little bit different. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Holmes, who will talk about the hypersonics.
Okay, thank you, sir. So a couple of things about hypersonics that have made us so very successful in this program and has allowed us to deliver on such an accelerated timeline is this was being developed at the Space and Missile Defense Center as an S&T project. And we transitioned it out of the S&T world into prototype development with our Navy partners, the Conventional Prompt Strike program, and it's been a very successful program moving forward. The Common Missile, the Common Hypersonic Glide Body, is a Navy joint program with the Army. So that's made us very successful. We've modified some equipment to put together our launchers and our battery operations center. And as the General reported to you, we delivered all of our ground support equipment on last Thursday to a unit of action. So that was a really highlight of my career. We don't often get to do that. So it was a really good day for us. So if we go to the next chart, I'm happy to introduce AUSA to our most recently assigned prototyping effort, which is the mid-range capability. The mid-range fires capability is also part of the Army's #1 priority, long-range precision fires. It's complementary to other LRPF systems in development. It supports this layered defense. It is the mid-range between hypersonics and PrSM. So we received this mission in July of 2020, on July the 1st of 2020. I'm looking at Gary Hallinan, he is our PM. And we're able to deliver on this aggressive, accelerated schedule because we are leveraging existing hardware, software, and institutional training for these proven capable missiles for SM-6 and Tomahawk. And by maintaining commonality with the Navy, we are able to capitalize on modernization efforts, on investment strategies across multi-service, mid-range capability programs to include joint test events. So MRC is a participant in joint test events with the Navy and the Marine Corps. We are actually putting soldiers on this equipment that are giving us their ideas and their feedback that we're rolling back into the design of these platforms. Following prototype delivery in FY23, MRC will also transition to PEO missiles in space. We have a transition team in the office today led by Colonel Castro that's putting together the transition strategy for this much needed capability, and they will pick up production, fielding, and further development of the MRC capability. Next slide. And to close out the Army's +4, these are the +4 modernization efforts, I'm happy to update you on our directed energy activities. So in April 2019, the Secretary of the Army signed a memo that designated the RCCTO as the organization responsible for all of the Army's directed energy activities. So directed energy weapons offer a significant defensive capability against unmanned aircraft systems, fixed and rotary wing aircraft. And as the General has told more people today, we're not going to missile our way out of the next fight. Directed energy platforms actually give us the answer to the cost curve challenge. They are the solution that we have to build to address the cost curve. So we're leveraging existing DE technologies and we're integrating them onto Army platforms to deliver rapid prototypes with residual combat capability. And as the Secretary of the Army presented this morning, the first combat-capable directed energy system to be delivered in FY22, that is this year, is the DE Maneuver Short-Range Air Defense System. And the DE MSORAD integrates a 50-kilowatt class laser onto a Stryker platform. We have done that. We have demonstrated that in a successful combat shoot-off this summer against realistic environments and threats in an operational environment. So we have proven that technology. It was a major milestone for our prototyping completion on track for FY22, and our future plans include participation in Project Convergence 21 this fall with the Army Futures Command. Indirect fire protection capability high energy laser is a collaborative effort with OSD and the joint services. OSD has a high energy laser scaling initiative. We have partnered with OSD and the joint services to incorporate and prototype a 300 kilowatt laser integrated into an Army platform for delivery in FY24. This platform is expected to provide defense for fixed and semi-fixed sites against a variety of threats. Complementary to IFPC-HEL is IFPC-HPM, high-powered microwave. It's intended to be fielded and deployed with a high-energy laser. A high-energy laser is typically a weapon that you use against a singular target, where an HPM will help you address swarms or groups of targets, UAVs, threats. So the Air Force deployed an early prototype this year. It's called Thor. We are watching that very closely. It will inform the Army's decisions. We are looking to put soldiers over there on the system to do an operational assessment and give us feedback to inform the Army's decision to build a prototype platoon in FY24. And our latest effort is a palletized counter small UAS effort, where we are prototyping a 10 and 20 kilowatt laser to be palletized for semi-infix site defense against a variety of threats. So that's our latest and greatest effort for the RICTO in the Directed Energy Project Office. So that completes my update to all of you on our strategic efforts. I'm super excited about the capabilities that we are poised to deliver starting this year, continuing into next year. I think we deliver a new prototype to the battlefield every year for the next 5 years. So that's a pretty exciting time following the successful example of long-range hypersonic weapons. So I appreciate your time, your interest, and I'll pass it over to my counterpart in the National Capital Region, Mr. Stan Darbrow.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be here. Hope everybody else is. I'm glad we got a big crowd out. We have a lot of things that's going on in the RCCTO, and we're excited to tell you about it. Let's go to the next chart. So let me start out with, we look at the executing innovation in the National Capital Region with my teams that I have up here, and a couple of different ways we do it. One of the ways we do it is we're doing the Army Strategic Rapid Acquisition. That was formerly known as Innovation Days. We've already kicked off 3 Innovation Days that was highly successful. We have a number of those projects that are on contract right now. We just finished our 3rd one. We're about to start our 4th Innovation Day, or ASTRA as we're calling it. We are teaming up with PEO C3T and PEO CSCSS, and we're going to hit their specific gaps that have been identified by them and their operators. And then we're going to put out requests for white papers now be coming out next month in November. So as we go to do that and we put them out there, what we do is we find a partner, a transition partner, and with a PEO and PM. We find out exactly where the problem statements are, where are the gaps, and then we coordinate that across community of interest, and then we come out with an announcement and we put it out on sam.gov and as much social media as we can to get the word out. We ask for people, industry and academia, to turn in white papers addressing how they might solve that solution. And then we have a team of panelists. The last time we did, we had over 70, about 76, 78 judges. And then they'll take those white papers and they'll verify that they are indeed addressing what we've asked them to. We'll down select those and we'll ask a subset of that to come in and give a pitch day. And then those people come in and give pitch days. We gave a prize award last time of $5,000 at the end of the pitch to help offset. We're looking for companies, traditionals, non-traditionals, but that $5,000 helps offset some of the costs for the non-traditionals, and we're trying to get small businesses in there as well. And it's worked out very well. And then at the end of that, then the combination of what we've learned through the white papers, what we've learned through the pitch days, then we'll go into concept refinement, and then we'll go on to negotiate contracts and put them on contracts. Our Innovation Day 3, we just finished that at the end of July, and most of it's on contract right now. We'll end up with 8 contracts in total. I'll have all those on contract not later than another week and a half from now. They'll all be on contract. So it's a fast-moving train. We have the resources to put on contract once we get it. So that one we just now did, we had partnered with PEO IEWNS and PEO Soldier. It worked out quite well. So that's next time, like I said, it's going to be PEO C3T and then PEO CSCSS. So the other innovation way we do it is counter small UAS. That's our other mission General Thurgood talked about earlier. That was on the other side of the chart, and that's supporting the Army as the executive agent for counter small UAS. We've done 3 demonstrations. We do the same thing, similar to what we did for our innovation days. We ask for white papers, we down select, and then we ask the vendors to come in and give a pitch, the ones that we believe are meeting what we've asked to fill the gap. And then those come in. We don't pay for you to come to the ranges on the demo for the counter small UAS, but we will pay for the range, and we'll pay for the evaluation. We'll do the telemetry, and we'll give you the results of that. So our next one coming up, we've done those for different ones. The first one was low collateral effects interceptor. The next one was the low cost ground-based area denial we just finished. We're about to do, the next one is going to be focused on directed energy and counter small UAS as a service. So we're looking for people to apply for that. Let me go to the next chart. So those are the ways we do innovation, and that's how we go out to industry and we ask, work with the PEOs and the community of interest, what problems we need to solve and how we get industry involved. There are other areas that we call directed efforts. Those directed efforts where our board of directors come back and tell us, Secretary of the Army, Chief, Vice, the AAE, Command General of AFC, they come back and they give us a direction, go do this. So those are other efforts. I'm going to give you 2 examples right now. And one of the examples is the Bradley Hybrid Electric Vehicle. We've been asked to go out and electrify the Bradley. It is not a hybrid electric engine. It is a hybrid electric vehicle. We want to be able to run quiet. We want to be able to put more energy out there. We want to use the power to run the organic sensors or organic weapons that are on that, and we want to be able to store electricity. So that's what we're doing. That program is a 24-month program. We're about 15 months into it, and they are on cost, on schedule, and on performance. And then we will transition that at the end of the 2 years to our transition partner. Then most recently, from the Secretary and the board, we just picked up the mission for tactical hybrid electric vehicles. That is for us to go out and look at doing the hybrid electrification of the Humvee and electrification of the JLTV. We're well down the path getting that. We put out white papers. We got a great response back from the vendors. We think we're going to need a little bit more time for the JLTV, so we're going to go out with another announcement on the JLTV. We have looked at the ones for Humvee, and we think where we need to be on that, and we'll be getting those on contract as well. So that's 2 examples of where we get directed energies. That's how we do our executing our innovation ideas. The National Capital Region, not counting the counter small UAS stuff that we have working with General Gainey, we probably have about 30, almost 40, around 40-some programs at the different efforts. So there's just a couple examples of that. But we're excited, and we're always looking for new ideas. You don't have to wait for Innovation Day to come out and tell us that you have something that helps the warfighter. Our job is to breach that valley of death, finish the invention, finish that design, build a prototype, put it in the hands of the warfighter as a residual capability. And then once they have it in there and it works out fine, we transition it. And then the PEOs, working with our community of interest, will decide whether or not there's going to be more of those bought out, whether it's hundreds or thousands or whatever. We do a unit of action. That's our job. It's working out really well, and it's a fast pace. So we welcome every idea that you might have. You can get to us, and we appreciate that. So with that, I think we're running out of time. General Thurgood, sir, I'll turn back over to you to start the Q&A.
All right, thanks, Dan. So it's actually pretty exciting work. You know, when I started this in 2019, I had a whole head of hair like Stan did, but it goes pretty quick when you're working so hard. It's really unique. The thing that I think we should also mention is that unlike traditional programs, we actually have operational soldiers that come to our first design reviews. We put them in virtual environments, and we make them walk through the designs with us, right? So we don't wait till some developmental test or some operational test. We start on day one with soldiers in the equipment virtually before we even start bending metal. We call those soldier touch points. And so on hypersonics, I think Colonel Humphreys, we have probably 500 or 600 hours of soldier touch points. More than that? Okay, a bunch. Same with directed energy, over 1,000 hours before we even built the first one. Getting soldiers in there in a virtual environment today, we can do those things. We don't have to wait and learn that lesson after we've already done the design work and then do the redesign work of that. So we're super excited about it, a lot going on, and I'll just pause there for any questions.
Thank you. Megan Eckstein with Defense News. You mentioned the upcoming flight test for the hypersonic missile. I wondered what the acquisition community will be looking for during that test, but also what the operational soldiers will be looking for during that test.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for all of our flight tests, whether it's hypersonics, mid-range, directed energy engagements, we have a very, I'm well left of center on the Type A scale, so I have a very dogmatic approach to our objectives. And we have primary objectives and secondary objectives. Some of those are material objectives, and then some of those are the TTP that our soldiers are developing. Did that work, right? Because when you're prototyping, not only you have a new piece of equipment, but you have to develop the new doctrine, the new TTP to go with it. So we have a very defined set of those. So our young soldiers up at JBLM with hypersonics, for example, they'll come out and start worrying about how do we place this? You know, how far apart do we have to be? All those kind of things that just are operational TTPs that traditionally would be very sequential. We don't have time to do that, nor do we want to do that. That's kind of old behavior. The new behavior is do it together, do it in real time, and if it doesn't work, change the design in real time. Don't wait for the past.
Hi, Jason Sherman from Inside Defense. I have a question about long-range hypersonic weapon and mid-range capability. For the hypersonic weapon, you delivered this you delivered some of the equipment to this first unit. What are the major developmental milestones that you need to hit between now and giving them a weapon system that is operational? And mid-range capability, could you talk to us also about where you are with that since you put that program on contract a year ago, and the major acquisition milestones between now and first unit equipped? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So let me, first of all, for mid-range, because we may run out of time, Gary, raise your hand. He's the right guy to talk about. He's our commander for mid-range, and then Ms. Holmes can also help answer that question. So in all of our when you're doing prototyping and the answer is yes, we want more of them, then in most cases you also have to build the industrial base as you're doing it. So unlike ammunition, where they have an industrial base that can build ammunition, there is no industrial base that can build a hypersonic glide body. So we're building that as we're doing it. So Dynetics, the company Dynetics, was chosen through a competitive selection process to build the glide bodies. They're using it. We chose a leader-follower strategy. Again, different behavior, right? We awarded a contract to a company, and we said, you're going to go out for a year and a half and learn how to make this thing at Sandia National Labs. You don't get to start from ground zero. That's the old way of thinking. So we chose a leader-follower strategy. So they've been out there for 2 years learning how to make glide bodies from the scientists from the S&T community that actually invented the technology. They're actually out there right now today building their first glide body. So first they were watching the Sandia. Now the Sandia folks are watching them build their first glide body at Sandia. So think about that, how unusual that is. We're actually having a commercial company build a glide body in a S&T facility, and then they'll come back to their facility, which their brand new facility they're building right now, and Sandia will come back and watch them build the first one in their facility, right? So you got to build an industrial base, key milestones, and we have a set of inch stones that come to, yard stones that come to milestones in every piece of that. We've also changed our paradigm, and we don't have to be the center of good ideas, right? If the Navy has a good idea, like the glide body and the missile stack, let's share that. Tomahawk missiles, SM-6 missiles. I don't need to go invent a new missile. If there's something out there in the world that can do what we need to do, we have to step past this idea that, well, if the good idea didn't come from us, it's not a good idea, right? You got to break that paradigm. There's a series of milestones. Right now, we're focused on the all up around in the canister that you saw in the picture, right? That is the decisive point. We got to get that thing completed, and we got to get into tests. And those shots, again, very unusual. They'll shoot shoulders will shoot the first shot. We don't have time to go off and wait for the engineers to do a bunch of work. We got to do it all together. And then mid-range is the same way, same series of outcomes. Wicked hard, same timeline, half the time. All right, so we're pretty excited. So they just gave me the signal in the back. If you're from the RCCO team, raise your hand, if you would, please. If you have additional questions, grab one of them. They can help you out. They're really smart. They look tired for a reason. They're working super hard. We're super proud to be part of the team, part of the Army team, part of the partnership with the Army Futures Command and ASALT, and part of our industry team as we go down this very interesting future. So thanks for your time today. Appreciate it.